Vanessa, let me welcome you to the program now. And as we discussed or we mentioned on Friday, Munich Security Conference going on over the weekend. And a lot of the focus seems to have been on Iran.
Yeah, very much so. Building the narrative for regime change war. Now, first of all, I just want to look at the 4 points that Netanyahu said he discussed with President Trump in Washington. This is Netanyahu speaking at the Jerusalem conference after his visit to Washington, but it gives a very good insight as to what the US negotiations will base their requirements upon. So let's just play this.
Several components that we believe are important not only for the security of Israel, but for the security of the world. The United States, the region, the world. The first is that all enriched material has to leave Iran. The second is that there shall be no enrichment capability, not stopping the enrichment process, but dismantle the equipment and the infrastructure that allows you to enrich in the first place. And the third is to deal also with the questions of ballistic missiles. There's an MTCR limitation of 300 kilometers, and Iran is supposed to adhere to it. Of course it doesn't, as the Rising Lion operation by itself manifested. Everybody knows that. And the fourth is dismantle the axis of terror that Iran has built. It's been smashed, but it's still there. It's trying to recover, as Iran itself is trying to do.
So, I mean, basically, of course, Netanyahu is bringing forward terms that Iran is under no circumstances going to accept. So we see the usual negotiations trap being set. Then Netanyahu mentions that Iran lies or makes stuff up, is a deceitful enemy, etc. But let's listen to what he says about the disarmament of Hamas in Gaza.
And then Gaza must be demilitarized. Disarmed means that it must give up its weapons, not main weapons. And what are the main? People said heavy weapons. There are practically no heavy weapons in Gaza. There's no artillery, there are no tanks. There's nothing. The heavy weapon, the one that does the most damage, is called an AK-47. Okay? That's it. That's how they execute people.
So wait, did Netanyahu just admit that the Palestinians had absolutely nothing to do with the massacres on October the 7th, which released scenes like this, where cars had been torched by Apache helicopters, tanks, and so on, under the control of the Israelis? And of course, this is kind of a foregone conclusion. Even Hebrew media sources like Haaretz have very clearly stated that the IDF ordered the Hannibal Directive on October the 7th to prevent Hamas taking soldiers captive. So just an aside from the Iran issue, but demonstrating the hypocrisy of Israel when they claim that Iran is the one that is lying. And then let's come to the Munich Security Conference, as you mentioned, Mike. And if you just scroll down a search on YouTube for the Munich Conference and Iran, you get a whole raft of such interviews and talks, of course, all targeting Iran for regime change. And the dreadful Lindsey Graham was there, who's been given increased relevance under the Trump administration. And here he is talking to Christiane Amanpour at the Munich conference.
Ever problems associated with the day after, if the people win against the Ayatollah, are a fraction of the problems associated with the Ayatollah killing his way out yet again, standing to murder another day. If you don't realize we're on the verge of history, you're missing a lot. We're talking weeks, not months. And when we do this, if we do, we're starting and we're not stopping.
What I find interesting is what he basically says is we'll secure a regime change after that. We really don't care what happens in Iran. But again, they're working on behalf of the people. Then shortly after the Munich Security Conference, Lindsey Graham went to Tel Aviv, where he again pushed the regime change message to an Israeli audience. Let's hear this.
The best answer to all the problems created by Iran is regime change. The best answer is for the people to take the place of the Ayatollah. I do not believe they're in the streets to build more nuclear weapons. I think they're in the streets to have a better life.
So, I mean, there's absolutely no sort of subterfuge over this particular regime change operation. Then, of course, last night or yesterday, we had the talks in Geneva, the second round of talks. They're heading for a third round of talks. Apparently, the Iranian foreign minister had actually said that there was some agreement on guiding principles. Generally, the response has been positive. Of course, generally speaking, Iranians believe that negotiation is always a trap and that there is absolutely no chance of concessions from Iran towards what Israel is demanding. At the same time, Trump is building up a military presence in the region. They're sending the USS Abraham Lincoln to join the other aircraft carriers. And there have been reports of dozens of planes, F-22, 35 and 16, heading towards US bases in the region. And finally, I think Mike and everyone listening today will agree with me that the clearest sign of the US heading for a regime change war or destabilization project is when they Hitlerize the enemy. And this is exactly what Lindsey Graham does at the end of his conversation with Christiane Amanpour at the Munich Security Conference. So let's just play this.
All we need is the courage of our convictions. I cannot promise you exactly what the day after will be, but if somebody had killed Hitler in 1935, it would have probably been better. If this regime falls, the day after has promise. If it stays in place, the day after is going to generationally destroy the Mideast, and we'll be haunted by this for generations to come, and they will be talking about us in a very bad way.
So I think the end game is inevitable. It's just how long it takes for the US to get to that point.
Yes, indeed. Thanks. Number of weeks you've been talking about the Gaza reconstruction ideas from Trump and so on. But what has Russia's role been in all this?
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's quite a conundrum, in fact, because since Trump created his so-called Peace Board or Board of Peace, which has its inaugural convention tomorrow in Washington, there's been some confusion over whether Russia were actually to accept a place on the board. Initially, President Putin was talking about allocating $1 billion from the frozen $5 billion in assets in the US to be able to buy them a place on the board. Now there seems to be a slight different direction for the $1 billion. Dmitry Peskov went on record yesterday saying Russia remains the only country in the world that has decided to allocate $1 billion in aid to the Palestinians. Now, this isn't entirely true that they are the only country, and we'll come on to this. But let's remember, let's just have a look at Gaza before and Gaza as it is now. This is just one section of Gaza City, that at least a minimum of $70 billion is needed to even get it back to the condition that it was in previously. And of course, Israel is continuing the genocide in Gaza itself. It's not providing humanitarian aid. Children are dying of cold and starvation, etc., etc. While in the West Bank, and I'll come on to that, things are ramping up to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians, even from the West Bank enclaves. Now, 4 months ago, even the Saudi foreign minister was making the point that while they're ready to contribute to the reconstruction in Gaza, they did actually say it is unacceptable to seek international funding to rebuild Gaza while the underlying conditions that enabled its destruction remain unchanged. Now, this is the first that I agree with Saudi Arabia, but in contrast to the Russians that are simply putting out a statement saying, yeah, we'll give $1 billion for reconstruction without any conditions as to how that money will be used and what conditions the Palestinians are going to be living in post-reconstruction. And then, of course, back on the 22nd of January, President Putin, again, this is where some of the confusion comes in. He met with Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority in Moscow at the Kremlin. If we can just have this on screen, please, that would be great. Where he was actually saying that the 1 billion would be a contribution to Trump's board of peace. Now, while having conversations with Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority, of course, there must be recognition that the Palestinian Authority is considered effectively to be a stooge of Israel and is largely responsible for much of the repression of the resistance in the West Bank in particular. And then in the last 2 days, the deputy foreign minister put out a statement saying that basically Russia is still trying to nail down the Board of Peace mission. Apparently, Minsk suggested to Moscow that they could represent Russia on the Board of Peace. That was knocked aside by Sergei Rybakov, who, as I said, is the deputy foreign minister. And in fact, what he said is Moscow is in no hurry to decide. We will see who takes part in Washington on February the 19th, at which level and scope. We continue to study to analyze the set of proposals and elements concerning the structures, function and scope. So again, we're left in rather a state of limbo as to whether Russia is officially going to be involved in the Board of Peace. Many European countries are backing off from it, saying that Trump is trying to effectively replace the UN and take control not only of the peace process in Palestine, but in other areas of the world. And at the same time, as I mentioned, the ramping up of pressure on the West Bank itself. So Israel's new West Bank registration process is basically declaring Palestinian land in the West Bank as state property, which of course effectively is annexation of that land. Now, just for people to understand the extent of loss of territory for the Palestinians, here's a map just showing Gaza there on the left and what's left of the West Bank, which of course, if we look at the next slide, we can see to what degree that has also been broken down and divided. If we could have, yeah, thank you. So basically you have Area A, which is run by the Palestinian Authority, Area B, which is 22% of the territory, PA and Israel, and then Area C, which is being targeted for this annexation of land and making of this land to be state property, effectively will lose through that process 83% of that area. So when you look at the orange area, 83% of that will then be annexed to Israel, to the state. And of course, it will not be resold to Palestinians. And at the same time, Israel is bringing in tanks, it's bringing in aerial bombing, helicopters into the West Bank in an attempt to further ethnically displace or ethnically cleanse the people from the West Bank in a very similar fashion that was used in Gaza. And in fact, these are figures relating to May 2025. So now, of course, they've obviously increased. I think around 7,000 Palestinians have been driven out of their homes in the West Bank, and something like probably more than 3,000 Palestinian-owned structures in the West Bank have effectively been destroyed. And all of this while Russia, of course, traditionally, and China talk about or uphold a two-state solution. Well, one has to ask what kind of two-state solution is going to exist if all Palestinian territory is effectively annexed and the Palestinians are ethnically cleansed from their homes in both Gaza and in the West Bank. And of course, there's no statement from Russia on this basis. And then I just want to raise the question, who is going to receive this 1 billion of reconstruction aid for Gaza? Is it going to go to the Palestinian Authority, which is effectively Israel? Is it going to go directly to Israel, whom we know has no intention of allowing Palestinians to remain in Gaza except as cheap labor contained within even smaller labor camps to effectively secure Gaza as part of a free trade zone running in the India-Middle East Economic Corridor from India through the Gulf states into Gaza and then into Egypt. To Hamas, almost definitely not, of course, although Hamas is the recognized government of Gaza. To Washington and Israel through the Trump Board of Peace. To Jared Kushner, who's been involved in the talks on Iran, but also the talks on Ukraine. It appears that this 1 billion, whatever way you look at it, is effectively going to be used to bail out Israel after it has effectively decimated and destroyed Gaza. It's a bailout for Israel, in my opinion. And I would ask the question, if Russia had economically boycotted Israel from the very beginning, would it then be necessary for Russia to now contribute 1 billion to the reconstruction of Gaza?
Indeed, Vanessa. And if Russia had economically boycotted Israel from the beginning, how many other countries may have joined?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.